Very good evening. You're watching Nation at 5. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. Our top focus this hour happens to Bengal, which has been gripped by violence. But in a confidence-building exercise, the NHRC, the NCW, and of course the Governor C.V. Ananda Bose have been making their visits to Malda. In fact, it was the NCW team accompanied by the chairperson Vijay Rahatkar who in fact visited Malda today. They met the displaced families over there. At the same time, the political blame game has already begun. C.V. Ananda Bose, who has also met with the displaced families in Malda, has now been labelled by the Trinamool Congress-led government as the BJP man. At the same time, the Calcutta High Court has ordered that the Central Armed Forces stay put in Murshidabad till the situation is completely normalized. Let's also tell you that the NHRC has also paid a visit today. Both these teams, whether it is the NHRC or the NCW, will now be filing their own inquiry committee reports, and that should happen after a couple of weeks once they have assessed the ground situation. But the situation in Bengal remains extremely fragile. We speak at a time when there is already a blame game undergoing as far as the communal violence that is gripping Murshidabad is concerned. Let's also listen in to some reactions.
See, law and order, as per the Constitution of India, is the responsibility of the state government. If the state needs central support, central forces can also come. This has happened in Bengal earlier and even now. What is required in such a situation is not fault finding, but definite positive action, neither inaction. State requires positive action from all sides together. Cult of violence has there been in Bengal for a long time. In history, we have seen it on many occasions. It is becoming more prominent in Bengal during elections. This is a pernicious trend which cannot be tolerated under any circumstances. Strong action has to be taken.
हमने तो उनकी चिंता तो उनके संरक्षण के लिए, सुरक्षा के लिए और सम्मान के लिए हमें तब तक चिंता करनी पड़ेगी जब तक ये सब कुछ पूरा नहीं होता है। तो स्वाभाविक रूप में इन सभी महिलाओं की हमें चिंता भी है और उनके लिए पूरी ठीक व्यवस्था हो जाए, ये भी हम देखेंगे।
Michunda, first of all, would like to ask you that we have got the report and we were in the court. The report says that it is the stone pelting was like anything. Police had to resort to fire, and everything is mentioned by police that things were really bad in these areas. What do you have to say to that?
Thank God that police has given a report. And police has given a report that the devastation is much more than you think. Temple has been broken. People have been unnecessarily beaten up, burned the houses, massacre. The people, I want to know what those people have done. What they got to do with the Waqf bill. Now today, they घर से निकाल दिया उनको, and त्राण शिविर में खिचड़ी खा रहे हैं. It is the fate of these people. I think worst situation this Bengal is facing. Nothing more I can say in this.
Today NHRC is also going there. What is your reaction?
No, point is this, the rehabilitation part state has completed. All the persons who are not there, when they had to leave the places, we have given the statistics on that. And district magistrate is taking all steps for rehabilitation, apart from that 10,000 rupees per individual to the affected person. All that rehabilitation is made. But since these petitioners are political persons, they have to make it politics. If politics is not there, he can't exist. Therefore, they were saying, no, these are not the persons. They are handed over a list. And in the court itself, I have said, out of 865, already 48 persons have been rehabilitated. Since a dispute has been raised by them, court has said, all right, I am forming a committee to look into that. You give the names. They are not in a position to give the names. They are making some statement without any foundation. State wants peace, state wants rehabilitation, state wants to see the people's life is safe, but the petitioner is the opposition leader of the BJP, and naturally they want to do the politics.
It is also stated in the order that if Central feels it's a disturbed area, then they have that NIA, they can come up with the decision of NIA. That thing is also there in the order. What do you have to say on that?
I don't know why this has been passed, because in this matter, central government also has no power.
All right, those are the political reactions. But in fact, joining me right now is our correspondent Anindya, who is in the epicenter of all those riots that took place in the last few days in Bengal, and that is Murshidabad. Let me quickly go across to Anindya. Anindya, you have been interacting with the victims' families. To have it straight from the horse's mouth, give us an account of what is it that you are learning from all the violence that gripped, what led to that violence, and what is your finding in terms of all those reports that are indicating that the rioters were also brought in from Bangladesh?
Well, I have spoken to multiple survivors, even victims' families. All of them allege one thing, that they're not from Bangladesh, as has been an allegation from a political allegation. They all say that they are from their local people, but they couldn't be identified for the simple reason that their faces were they were hidden behind a mask. But the fact that the Hindu houses were categorically and very selectively chosen to be attacked required local knowledge, and that could only happen from somebody who is a localite. That's the claim of that's the argument of the villagers in Dulian area, in Suti area, that has been the heart of the attack. I have been to Jafrabad, where two people, one 72-year-old man and his 40-year-old son, have been brought out, dragged out, and lynched to death. Their family are extremely wary, and they demand a permanent BSF camp, saying that they don't have any faith in the police administration. Even as we speak, we have broadcasted a report where exodus is still on. People are still fleeing. Hindu families are still fleeing, and though there have been reach out efforts from the administration, from the party level, even the MLAs have been trying to reach out. That's there, but the fact that the fear of psychosis is so huge and overwhelming that many Hindu families are still leaving as we speak. So clearly, there's a calm, there's a peace, but that's a very uneasy and eerie calm. But what's a positive indication is that there was assumption that there could be things can go wrong after Friday's namaz. That hasn't happened, and that's why that's a positive takeaway.
That certainly is. And when we talk about the confidence building measure, as far as the Governor C.V. Ananda Bose making that visit is concerned, Anindya, quickly take us through in how much time can we expect Governor Bose to arrive in Murshidabad?
He is expected, but we have to wait. NHRC team, as we speak, has reached the Shamsherganj police station. They are reaching out to the victim. We also expect the Governor Bose in very short time to make that visit. But considering that the affected areas are very interior and the roads are very thin alleys, it remains to be seen whether Governor Bose is able to reach the interiors, the heart of the epicenter of the attack. Where I'll quickly add an instance where Bilgbona is a village where an estimate claims 130 houses, mostly belonging to the Hindu communities, were burned to ashes. So those areas whether Governor Bose can reach out today, that remains to be seen.
All right, many thanks to you for bringing us all those inputs. Anindya continues to be in Murshidabad, and remember, he's been bringing us all that information firsthand from the epicenter of violence that happens to be Murshidabad. On that note, let's also tell you how the NHRC has been responding. In fact, CNN News 18, in an exclusive conversation with NHRC member Priyank Kanungo, in fact, spoke, where Priyank, in fact, highlights how the NHRC will soon be submitting a report after they have assessed the law and order situation on the ground level, which is also going to be based on the victims' first-hand accounts. On that note, let's listen in to that conversation that Priyank Kanungo of the NHRC had with Shivani Gupta of CNN News 18.
You've also given certain directions to the state administration. Can you tell us? Can you begin by telling us what directions you've given them?
As of now, we have issued direction to our investigation team to visit there and submit a report to the commission after meeting the victims and inquire into the incident where on the basis of Hindu religious identity, one father and son were killed who were Dalit family who are from Dalit community. So we had I had issued directions to get the matter inquired, and let the team submit report to us. After that, we will be able to say anything more about this.
You said that they were a Hindu family who was slaughtered, and yes, of course, the case of the father and son duo has come to light, along with one more death that has happened in this violence. You are saying that you received a complaint that this was because of their Hindu identity. What has established that to you? Because the local government is trying to suggest that this could have been personal enmity or some sort of a personal war between the perpetrator and the victims.
देखिए, हमको जो कंप्लेंट मिली है वो कैटेगरिकली ये बोल रही है, कंप्लेंट का जो मजमून है वो ये बता रहा है कि मरने वालों को हिंदू आइडेंटिटी के कारण मारा गया है और मरने वाले हैं भी हिंदू ही। आज जब हमारी टीम वहाँ पहुँची है तो जिस परिवार में पिता पुत्र की मृत्यु हुई है उसके परिजनों से आज भी हमारी टीम की भेंट अभी तक तो 1 घंटे पहले तक नहीं हुई थी। अब प्रशासन ने उनको कहाँ रखा है, क्या किया है, ये भी हमको नहीं पता है। तो लेट द टीम कम बैक एंड सबमिट ए रिपोर्ट टू अस, वी विल बी एबल टू फाइंड आउट व्हाट आर द रियल कॉजेज। बट ये मैं कह सकता हूँ कि कंप्लेनेंट ने ये बताया है कि हिंदू आइडेंटिटी की वजह से मारा गया और मूर्ति बनाने वाले दलित परिवार को मारा गया। ये अपने आप में हमको इस और इंगित करता है कि ये कम्युनल हिंसा ही है।
अभी स्थिति सुधर गए हैं, धीरे धीरे स्वाभाविक हो रहा है। लोग अभी जो इधर उधर थे वो लोग आए हैं, आप दिख रहे हैं। हम लोग यहाँ काम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। मैं कहूँगा जो ये नहीं होना चाहिए था लेकिन हो गया। जो ये लोग काम किया है उसको हम जिम्मेदार कर रहे हैं। हमने पुलिस को बोला है आइडेंटिफाई कीजिए, लोगों से पूछिए कौन किया है, उसके खिलाफ एक्शन लीजिए।
जिस प्रदेश की सरकार एक अमन चैन का वातावरण तैनात नहीं कर सकती, उस प्रदेश की सरकार को सरकार में रहने का औचित्य नहीं होता।
Because there appears to be, by the statements of the Chief Minister herself, that there is a breakdown of our constitutional machinery. Consider a Chief Minister making a public statement that she will not implement a central law in Bengal. How can she do it? How can anybody do it? Is she not bound by the constitution and the laws? Second, the incidents of violence on issues which are against the central government, the violence against Hindus, and with rather a recurring occurrence, and every time the victim is the Hindu society. And
You mean the Union Home Secretary?
no, the Bengal government, because law and order is a state subject, and she shouts loud about it. So, because of the recurrence of violence against Hindus, these two are our reasons for
And BSF, he is blaming BSF that, everything, BSF has given money. How do you take that?
I take that as a white lie. Even the Chief Minister has not backed up her statement with an iota of evidence. In any case, let the matter go to NIA and NIA investigate all of it. Of course, yes, we are going to meet the Union Home Secretary also. When the Chief Minister says that they are pre-planned and still it happened, it's a failure both of the intelligence and of the law and order machinery.
And BHP is going to protest all over the India.
All over the country in all districts tomorrow.
Well, keeping the political blame game aside, CNN News 18 is one of the few channels to be reporting from ground zero, that is Murshidabad. In fact, we even spoke to a 70-year-old Hindu man whose house was destroyed. It was attacked. In fact, bombs were hurled at his house, and this was the very house where he had been residing for generations. It was also his father's, his grandfather's house. In fact, his wife had to escape from the back gate along with their 3 daughters. These horrifying accounts are now coming to the forefront as a family like this is now left packing 3 bags and looking for a safe and secure place. We bring you this first-hand account from Murshidabad.
At the heart of Dhulian, Shamsherganj. In fact, I'm at Jafrabad.
And Jafrabad degree.
Jafrabad, where 2 people, a father and son duo, were killed just few meters from here. I am with Krishna Chandrapal, one such family, a Hindu family, who is worried, whose house has been ransacked and they're about to flee. The allegations that were called baseless, now one can see with your own eyes Krishna Chandrapal, who has been living with from his forefathers for 100 years in this house and in this place are living. Sir, क्यों जा रहे हैं आप छोड़ के?
हम इस लोग को उपद्रव से चल जा रहे हैं. इस लोग का हम घर बाड़ी जला दिया, हम लोग को जान मारने के हुमकी दे रहे हैं, तो हम कह रह गया.
उस दिन क्या हुआ था? उस दिन हुआ क्या?
उस दिन में हजार लोग आया और हम लोग को घर बार टूटा दिया, मार देने का कोशिश किया, इसलिए हम पीछे से भाग गया. डीजल देखता है गिरा, डीजल से हमको पूरा मार के.
तो डीजल बम फेंका?
हाँ, डीजल वो देखना गिरा है, डीजल है पड़ा है.
तो आप उस दिन उस भय का माहौल में आपके मंदिर में भी आप बोल रहे थे आँच आए हैं, क्या हुआ है?
वो मंदिर का विग्रह को टूट दिया. वहाँ मंदिर है हमारा, मंदिर है, दिखाते चलिए. वहाँ सबरी माँ का मंदिर है, बड़े हम लोग हिंदू है, हिंदू पूजा करेंगे, पूजा करना हमारा ये है, अधिकार है.
तो आप इस घर में 100 साल से ऊपर रह रहे हैं, आपके पुरखों.
हमारे पिताजी यहाँ से देहांत हुआ, दादाजी देहांत हुआ मिट्टी में, और हम भी 70 वर्ष का उम्र हो गया तब ये है.
I just quickly want to show the temple, the house temple of this house. If I can ask my camera person to come and show this. This is the temple where it has been left ransacked. The entire place is a mess right now, and that's where they have a fear. They have a fear psychosis, and that's why they're living up.
এখানেই বাঁচবো, কিন্তু আমাদেরকে থাকতে দিল না. আমার 3টা মেয়েকে নিয়ে আমি পিছন দিক দিয়ে বাড়িয়ে গেছি. আমার দিকে মেরে ফেলে বলছে কি বাড়িয়ে মেরে ফেলে দেবো. কেরোসিন ঢালছে, কেরোসিন, বোমা, ডিজেল এগুলো দিয়ে. আর সোনা ছিল 10 ভরি সোনা, টাকা ছিল 3 লাখ টাকা, সব ছেড়ে চলে এসেছি. কি কোথায় যাবে? এখানে থাকতে পারবো না, আতঙ্ক লাগছে. যে এই দিক থেকে লোক চলে আসবে, ওই দিক থেকে হাঙ্গামা করবে. আমরা বিএসএফ এর ক্যাম্প চাই, আমরা বাঁচবো না.
আর কেন্দ্রীয় শাসন চাই,
কেন্দ্রীয় শাসন চাই.
কেন্দ্রীয় শাসন.
They're asking for a president's rule in Bengal and saying that otherwise things have gotten so out of hand that they cannot live in like it's all normal, back to normal. That is not gonna happen. I'll just quickly show the situation of the house and all the belongings they're living with. These are the belongings they're living with, and they're ready to live. All this packed, all of their lives they've lived here and now packed in 3 bags and about to live in just few minutes. And that's the real tragedy of Murshidabad. That's the real tragedy of Jafrabad. And people have to flee, even as the demand, even as the claims of the Bengal government and Bengal administration is that everything is normal and people are coming back who had to flee. in fact, the story is that people are still fleeing from their houses, particularly from the Hindu community.
होंगे कि महिलाओं के लिए सभी लोगों ने बहुत संवेदनशील रहना चाहिए। ये संवेदनशीलता ही महिलाओं को न्याय दे सकती है। इस संवेदनशीलता की अगर कमी होती है तो इस तरह की स्थिति आ जाती है।
मैम, जिस तरह से लड़कियों ने बता रही है कि इन लोगों को बताया गया कि आप अपना रिलीजन चेंज कर लो, इज्जत दे दो, ये कैसे हो सकता है? ये तो इंडिया है मैम, ये तो पाकिस्तान नहीं है। मैम, ये जो सिचुएशन, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशन को देख के क्या बोलेंगे? इज्जत देने के बाद
मैं इस विषय में आपके साथ बाद में बात करूंगी। मुझे अभी इनके साथ बात करनी है। मैं इतना ही कहूंगी कि महिलाओं के बारे में, सबके बारे में हमने बहुत संवेदनशील रहना चाहिए। संवेदनशीलता की कमी होती है तो इस तरीके से प्रकार सामने आते हैं। आज का जो हमने देखा है वो बहुत ही मन को दुख देने वाला है।
क्या अभी महिलाओं को सब कुछ मिल रहा है? क्या बंदोबस्त?
All right, that was the NCW chairperson Vijayata Rahatkar, who in fact arrived along with her team. Remember, she's also part of the probe committee, which will be filing its report in some time from now after assessing the ground situation. On the other hand, we can show you those live visuals that are coming in on your screen from CV Ananda Bose, the governor, who has arrived in Murshidabad now. Remember, after being in Malda, he was en route to Murshidabad. We are being told he has arrived over there, where he will also be meeting various victims and their families. Remember, several Hindu families have now been displaced from Murshidabad. There's been a mass exodus which has now led to all these families moving over to the shelter camps in Malda. We will keep a hawk's eye on all the latest developments, but for now we're slipping into a quick break. Stay tuned to Nation at 5. Welcome back. There's been a massive breakthrough as far as India's strategic concerns are concerned. The FBI has made a very significant arrest. They have arrested one of the Khalistani terrorists named Harpreet Singh, alias Happy Passia. Now, the breaking inputs that we are bringing to you on the story is that the FBI has now issued a statement which they have used on X as well. In fact, they have declared that according to the statement, Singh is suspected of collaborating with Pakistan's inter-services intelligence and the Khalistani group Babar Khalsa International. The FBI has in their statement in fact revealed that Harpreet Singh was trying to evade arrest by using various encrypted apps and burner phones, making him a challenging target as far as the FBI is concerned. But look at this arrest now. It is also a major signal coming in from the United States that they will be treating Khalistan terrorists also with equal seriousness as they have been treating these Islamic terrorists as well. On that note, let's quickly go across to Siddhant Mishra, who's joining me with more inputs on that news story. Siddhant, first of all, take us through why this is a major breakthrough for India and the United States.
No, indeed. It's a complete different approach of FBI, US government dealing with extremist forces and especially the transnational gangs. In fact, India has always raised its concerns with the government of the United States in the past also. In fact, when President was Joe Biden, at that point in time, Akanksha, Indians were not heard so much the way they are being heard now. And this is the reason that the collaboration, the cooperation between the two countries have become so close that in fact the lines which were used in the Indian dossier have been used by the FBI in today's statement. In fact, very clearly mentioning that Harpreet Singh is a ISI man. He also works for Babar Khalsa, and in fact, Indian dossier also says that he's a close associate of terrorist Rinda.
Right.
He has more than 17 cases lodged against him in Punjab, and in fact, now we have been told that Indian teams are trying for his extradition.
Siddhant, at the same time, take us through how this arrest in itself is now bearing testimony to the linkages that are shared between the Khalistani terror groups and the Pakistani ISI.
Well, this once again exposes that how, there is a push from ISI for these extremist forces working in, operating from UK, US. And in fact, time and again, India have been talking about it. India have been raising this concern with not just the US government, but other countries also. India has dossiers after dossiers being served to these countries. In fact, there is evidence, material available with the Indian government that how ISI is funding them with arms, ammunition, funds, to operate. But this particular state, as I said before, this particular release from the FBI once again signifies that how now US is believing and trusting India as far as handling this menace is concerned. Handling these transnational gangs and doing crackdown against these criminals on US soil is concerned. So it's a big win for the Indian side because now the Indian dossiers that were sent to United States, handed over to United States many years back, now the actions are being taken on the basis of those dossiers.
Also, Siddhant, what explains this change of stance? You referred to how the previous US President Joe Biden was also entertaining various Khalistani activists when he had met some of them in the White House shortly before Prime Minister Modi was making his visit. And cut to 2025, we've seen Prime Minister visit the White House in Feb, and we see this arrest come very close to that meeting that took place at the Oval House. But give us a sense of what explains this change of stance.
Well, the change of stance is completely because of the friendship between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi. In fact, the Indian side was also very hopeful that when if Donald Trump comes to power, perhaps there's also going to be a permanent solution to this problem, to this crisis. And you see, Akanksha, you rightly said, when last time Prime Minister Modi visited United States in September, I very well remember, but a few days ahead of his visit, the separatist groups were invited to White House and there was a meeting which happened in White House. Perhaps that was the approach of the Biden administration. So this administration has completely different approach towards transnational gangs and separatist groups. And this has been proven by today's release and the crackdown that they have made by arresting Harpreet. And also, as I said before, the friendship between Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi. Perhaps the reflection of that could be seen with this arrest, extradition of Tahappur Rana. Now this, in days to come and months to come, one will see the reflection of the friendship as far as the relationship between the two countries. The two countries have come more closer to each other. There is more trust, and now US is relying on the dossiers that India have been serving to United States, the inputs that India have been giving to United States. And look, both countries are on the same ground when it comes to handling the illegals. Remember, Prime Minister Modi supported Donald Trump as far as his crackdown on illegal immigrants is concerned.
Right.
More or less, the top leadership is on the same page, and this is a reason that such crackdowns and such arrests are possible.
Many thanks to you, Siddhant, for bringing us all those extensive details on that news story. Let me quickly bring in our guest. I'm also joined in by Tara Kartha. Tara, how do you assess this very significant arrest, of course, but what is the larger messaging behind this arrest for both Washington and New Delhi?
See, what a lot of people here don't get is that catching these people is good for both, not just for us. It is something which Donald Trump wants to crack down on these illegals. Not just illegals, but the whole network which surrounds them. It's not just one illegal person sort of entering the US. There are the carriers, there are the drug people, there are the bunch of criminals surrounding them. In this case, of course, there's the whole Khalistani gang, which is thoroughly involved in human smuggling. Okay, they are also involved in that. In this person, I think, is wanted already in India for some 14 or 17 cases, if I'm not mistaken. And for us, it's for domestic, for our crime control, it's very important. But the point I'm making is it's equally important for the US. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, that's a very important point that you've made. Perhaps it is also an acknowledgement of the realization of the fact that has now dawned on the US administration under the aegis of Donald Trump, that it is these Khalistani gangs which are also involved in that drug menace that's now happening from across the borders. And not to forget that this man had also illegally entered the United States from Mexico back in the year 2023. But having said that, what do you attribute the change of stance to, especially when we were to compare the current Trump administration with the previous Biden administration, which had actually entertained Khalistani activists prior to Prime Minister's visit back in December of 2024?
It's quite a dramatic change, isn't it? So it's the sense of how much they've managed to get these people going. So it is, I think, to be honest, we've had a pretty good relationship with the US intel on criminal activities overall, to be honest. Khalistan is a political issue, and Biden chose to view it through a political lens. There is no such thing as Khalistan, right? It is as far as some people, which we won't go into who, decided to take a political stance on this. But in the final analysis, these are criminals, period.
What is your understanding now that the FBI itself has shared details which are bearing testimony to direct linkages between Babbar Khalsa and ISI? Is this also going to lead to further more arrests and perhaps a greater crackdown on ISI itself, which has been funding these Khalistani terrorists?
That's absolutely, that's a very important thing. For us, ISI is a perpetual headache. For the US, they don't care. You can be Pakistani, you can be Chinese, you can be anybody else. If you're a criminal, you're going to get into the neck. So if there is an ISI connection in any sort of thing that we come up, including that character who keeps spewing venom against India, they will get after them. That is the biggest advantage with this administration. It is not being pro-India, it is being pro-US. That's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Many thanks to you, Tara, for bringing us all those details and joining us here on Nation at 5. On that note, let me quickly go across to Major General A.K. Sivach, who's also joining us on the broadcast. Sir, how do you respond to this major arrest that has taken place? Of course, security analysts are calling it a big win for India and, of course, a way or a step forward as far as our relations with Washington are concerned.
No doubt about it. As far as India-US relations are concerned, they are on the upswing, and the US is helping India to get all those terrorists which are now operating in US and they have migrated from India. Like this Harpreet Singh, he is a mastermind of number of terrorist operation which had taken place in Punjab, and now he has been arrested by FBI. It is a step in the right direction, and you will find many more like him, those who are involved in Khalistani terrorist activities in India and now taken shelter in US. You will find that FBI and basically US administration coordinating and cooperating with India and trying to arrest them, and also they will be executed because we have a policy in this regard. The way Tahir Rana has been sent to India, you will find it many more will be coming back, and it is a step in the right direction. You will find it that such people who have done number of terrorist activities in India and who are a terrorist as far as India is concerned, they will be sent back.
When you say that this is a step in the right direction, how do you view this step also in terms of exposing those links between ISI and various Khalistani outfits like Babbar Khalsa?
You know, as far as this terrorist activity in India is concerned, and especially Khalistani terrorists, this is basically ISI involvement. It is whether it is Babbar Khalsa or Khalistan Commando Force. Here the ISI is giving them a lot of financial support, and they are aiding and also supporting them. And they have been now exposed even in US. So one can say with a lot of conviction and authority that yes, not only that they have been arrested, also the ISI and Pakistan involvement is exposed thoroughly.
Many thanks to you, sir, for joining in on Nation at 5. And with that, we're slipping into a quick break. Stay tuned to Nation at 5. In fact, we'll be back with the latest inputs as far as Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar is concerned. He's made an attack on the judiciary and questioning the judiciary's overreach as far as the executive is concerned. A host of talking points over there await your attention. Stay tuned to Nation at 5.
Brought to you by
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. There's a bold statement that has in fact come in from Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, where he has questioned the role being played by the Supreme Court and the overreach being made by the judiciary. This is with regards to the landmark ruling passed by the Supreme Court on April 8th. Remember, that ruling in fact had set deadlines for President and for the governors to pass bills by the state. And that, of course, has been questioned by the Vice President today as he was making that address to the Rajya Sabha interns. He, in fact, questioned the overreach of the judiciary. He also brought into focus Article 142, which, remember, is a special provision in the Constitution which grants special powers to the Supreme Court as far as the dissolution of special powers or the executive and the judiciary is concerned. Now, that has come on to the forefront, where the opposition parties like the TMC and the DMK have in fact slammed Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar's remarks. At the same time, in fact, speaking to CNN News 18, Mahesh Jethmalani, senior Supreme Court lawyer, backed Jagdeep Dhankar for his remarks over the judiciary. Listen in to what Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani has had to say.
There is a directive to the President by a recent judgment. Where are we heading? What is happening in the country? We have to be extremely sensitive. It is not a question of someone filing a review or not. We never bargained for democracy for this day. President being called upon to decide in a time-bound manner. Judges who will legislate, who will perform executive functions, who will act as super parliament, and absolutely have no accountability because law of the land does not apply to them. Article 142. Article 142 has become a nuclear missile against democratic forces. Available to judiciary 24/7.
Mr. Jethmalani, two very quick questions over here. One, a very important and pertinent point, many would say, because this is something many are asking, and you talked about judicial impropriety, and this is something which was raised by the Vice President of India as well in the case of Justice Verma's cash haul case. Mr. Jethmalani, does this then now give rise to this whole issue about something like an NJAC which the government should seriously work upon?
But look, I mean, that may be one solution. I'm not saying anything, right? But there are two issues of late which has come to the forefront pertaining to the judiciary. And if you look at social media, right, and public perception is reflected in social media, right, and there is a disquiet about the way there's a lack of transparency in very important matters which the public ought to know about, right? For instance, this whole transfer thing of Justice Verma by a very opaque decision, right, has not gone down well with people. Why should people not know the truth about it? Of course, now it's opened up and there's an inquiry, but that's because there was a public outcry. So the first is that the Supreme Court, not only in matters of appointment of judges and so High Court and Supreme Court judges, right, also their transfer, also corruption issues is opaque, right? We never get to the bottom of it. Secondly, there's also now a question of judicial overreach. That, they are entering into arenas all the time which belong exclusively to the executive. So there are two angles here, and both are creating a little bit of public disquiet right now. On corruption, people are very incensed on the Verma issue, but there's also this issue about, all the time sort of, interfering with executive decisions.
Yeah, that's what they say about the judiciary. It's has to be somewhat a bit like the Caesar's wife. But Mr. Jethmalani, there have been a series of press conferences. Mr. Sibal did one earlier today, and he said that Article 142 was something which was not made by any government. It is actually enshrined in our constitution, and the entire purpose behind it is to ensure the check and balance, and how the executive plus the legislature cannot arm twist the entire system. Someone has to check upon them, and the president or the governor, whatever the case may be, give their assent not on their own, but they do it only on the basis of the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Your reaction to that, Mr. Jethmalani?
No, but the president, look, the president has, or the vice president in this case, has a duty, right, to uphold the constitution, right? There is a provision which says that if a two-judge bench of the court, right, if the vice president feels that they acted wrongly, it can only have been decided by a 5-judge bench. What is wrong in saying that? There's a clear constitutional provision in Article 140. This is not about 142. 142 can't override 145(3). And what was the issue? Was not before the court. It was not before the Supreme Court. The question of the president's scope and limit of his power when a bill is referred to him, right, by the governor of a state, that was not the issue. The challenge was to the Tamil Nadu governor's actions. Incidentally, he referred one matter and the Supreme Court said he should decide it within 3 months. Why? Or she should decide it within 3 months.
All right, Pallavi was the one who actually had that conversation with Mahesh Jethmalani as well. She's joining me live on the broadcast. Pallavi, shed light on when the VP says that as far as Article 142 is concerned, it's a nuclear missile against the powers of democracy. Does it also mean that he's alluding to the whole division of powers that so far exists between the executive and the judiciary, and that Article 142, which has been on the rise so far, is also infringing upon that division?
Well, I think Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani has come out with a very strong rebuttal to Article 142, though Mr. Sibbal and most of the opposition lawyers and leaders are making the point that Article 142 was enshrined into our constitution. It was not by the government and therefore is sacrosanct. But the other point of view also is that it's not an unfettered power which has been given to a judiciary. At the end of the day, the counter argument is that every bill which becomes a law eventually is also something which is passed inside the parliament, which is a representative of the people, and it's not just passed overnight. It is passed through a lot of debate and discussion. For example, the Waqf bill went on till early hours of say 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. before it was clear. So is the mandate of the parliament any less than that of the judiciary? And second, if the judicial outreach or review is allowed, then anything which becomes a bill can be open to multiple litigations, which means that this is a process which goes on endlessly. I think the government is a little bit more guarded, but the vice president, who holds a constitutional position, and he's wearing that hat, and he's also a jurist himself, of course is making the larger point that Article 142 is fair enough, but you cannot use this as a misguided missile where you keep on shooting it off. It has to be tempered. The executive and the legislature have as much of power and responsibility as the judiciary has.
Many thanks to you, Pallavi, for sharing those inputs and putting perspective to that news story. On that note, let's also bring you some more reactions. Several legal experts have in fact criticized the move, that landmark ruling of April 8 as well. But on that note, let's listen in to what other voices from the other side of the political spectrum have had to say.
The President acts on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. The governor of a state acts on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers in the state. अपने व्यक्तिगत अनुसार कुछ नहीं करती. President acts on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. वो बात सरकार, केंद्र सरकार पे जाती है, केंद्र सरकार के Council of Ministers पे जाती है. वो एडवाइस करते हैं प्रेसिडेंट को कि क्या करना है. ये प्रेसिडेंट का कोई व्यक्तिगत हक नहीं है. ये धनखड़ जी को मालूम होना चाहिए. उन्होंने कहा कि आप प्रेसिडेंट की पावर को कैसे कंट्रोल कर सकते हो. भाई कौन कर रहा है प्रेसिडेंट की पावर को कंट्रोल? दिस इज इन फैक्ट एन इंट्रूजन ऑन द सुप्रीमेसी ऑफ द लेजिस्लेचर. ये तो उल्टी बात है.
While the vice president's joining of issues on judicial issues is finding traction among the general public, it is therefore imperative that the judiciary itself clarifies the position on a variety of issues. The burning of notes is there in public domain. Who collected the notes? Where was it to go? And why? There's a committee which the Vice President says has no investigative power,
Under the circumstances, by appointing a committee and putting the issue in cold storage doesn't save a situation. It is therefore imperative that these issues are clarified.
All right, we're getting in breaking inputs. In fact, remember, this is a controversy coming in from Karnataka, where Brahmin students in Shivamoga were asked to remove their sacred thread or the Janeyu shortly before they were taking the CET exam. And now, in fact, the breaking inputs that we are receiving is that another student, another PU student, has been asked to remove his Janeyu in Bidar. And this is after all these Brahmin students also raised the matter. They took the matter to the relevant authorities, who have now demanded that those officials who asked these students to remove the Janeyu be suspended with immediate effect. And in fact, the latest inputs that we are now getting is that a second PU student in Bidar, Suchivrat, has now missed his CET exam yesterday, this after being allegedly forced to remove the Janeyu. And for more inputs, let's quickly go across to Sudat Bharadwaj, who's bringing us those latest information. Sudat, take us through what is the action taken so far. A second PU student missing his exam and no action so far is what we are learning from. Also, any reaction coming in from the state government?
Well, yes, what we are hearing is that right now the district in charge minister, Ishwar Khandre, he has in fact ordered that the deputy commissioner to conduct a thorough probe and then come back, provide a report within 24 hours about what action has been taken, who is responsible. And yes, the government has acted so far, but this definitely raises a lot of questions about the Karnataka Examination Authority, the officials who are actually there, the examination officials who are present at these venues, and how they can have such absurd, guidelines about actually preventing students from entering examination hall when a sacred thread is in no way, an instrument for malpractice. So this definitely raises a lot of concerns. But so far, what we hear from the deputy commissioner too is that they are going to submit a report tomorrow. They are collecting all information from the examination authorities there, collecting all the CCTV footage to see what exactly has happened, and they are currently verifying. They are saying that an entire team could be responsible for this unfortunate incident.
Absolutely, but this entire matter has already snowballed into a political controversy, with the BJP raising questions against the Congress-led Karnataka government, asking them that it is the same government which is in fact raising their objections to the ban on the burqa, but they have no objections when a student's sacred thread or the Janeyu is removed. And that's all I have for you on Nation at 5. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue on CNN News 18.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Addressing the 6th batch of Rajya Sabha interns, Jagdeep Dhankar on Thursday said India was never meant to have a democracy where judges function as lawmakers, the executive, and even as a super parliament. He called Article 142 a nuclear missile against democratic forces.